She stumbled into the gravel lot barefoot, splinters still stuck in her palms. "He locked me in the shed," the girl whispered, voice trembling. "The nearest Hell's Angel didn't ask who. He didn't ask why. He just stood up, grabbed his keys, and said quietly, 'Show me where.' Before we start the story, tell us wherever you're watching from. Tell us in the comments, what touched you most in this story?" The late summer heat hung heavy over Pine Hollow, Oregon, turning the asphalt outside the Hells Angels clubhouse into a wavering mirage. Inside the open garage bay, the bikers were in their usual Sunday rhythm-fixing engines, swapping harmless insults and letting an old blues record crackle through cheap speakers. That rhythm shattered the moment a small silhouette wavered into view. Reed Solace Danner, a broad-shouldered angel with quiet eyes and a reputation for stepping between trouble and the innocent, set down his wrench instantly. A girl, maybe 14, stood barefoot at the edge of the concrete. Her braid was frayed, her shirt dirt-smeared, and her breathing came in short, panicked bursts. Her gaze locked onto Reed's like she'd been searching for him specifically. "Please," she whispered, voice raw from crying. He locked me in the shed." The entire garage froze mid-motion. Nobody asked who he was. Nobody asked why. Reed stepped forward slowly, hands open. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lilla," she whispered. "Lilla Gentry." Her chin trembled. "My stepdad said no one would help me." Reed grabbed his keys. He was wrong. Lila's knees gave out, and Reed caught her before she hit the ground. Her bare feet were torn from gravel and splintered boards, evidence of someone who'd run hard and run scared. Tucker, the soft-spoken giant of the group, wrapped her feet gently with a clean shop towel. "He locked you up?" he asked carefully. Lilla nodded, throat bobbing. "All night. He said it would teach me respect." Rourke, older and lined with scars that told their own stories, stepped closer. "Respect for what?" She swallowed hard. "Not speaking when men are angry." That sentence made every biker stiffen. Reed knelt lower. "Lilla, did he hurt you?" She shook her head, then corrected herself. Not like that. But he hurts my mom. A lot." Rourke exchanged a dark look with Reed. "Where is she now?" Lilla hugged her arms around herself. "Home. He said she'd get worse if I told anyone." Reed placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We're not leaving her there." She looked up, eyes wet. "You'd help her too?" Reed nodded once, firm and final. "We help anyone he's hurting." The angels moved fast, not out of rage, but out of practiced clarity, every man grabbing keys, vests, radios, as if they'd rehearsed rescuing kids their whole lives. Reed took lead position on his holly, with Rourke and two others falling into tight formation behind him. Tucker stayed in the truck with Lilla, buckling her in gently. Pine Hollow blurred past them, tall firs standing like silent witnesses as the convoy roared up the winding road. Lilla sat tense, fingers twisting the towel around her feet. "He's got guns," she murmured, voice cracking. Tucker nodded calmly. "So do we. But we use ours smarter than he uses his." She blinked at him. "You're not scared?" Tucker smiled softly. "For you." "No, for him." "Maybe." As they turned down the long dirt driveway, Reed signaled the formation wider. The Gentry house appeared, peeling siding, broken porch rail, and an unsettling stillness that made the hairs on Tucker's neck rise. Lilla whispered, "He's inside." Reed spoke into the radio. "Lilla stays put. No matter what." Tucker locked the doors from the inside. "We're right here, kid." The angel stepped out like a silent storm. Reed knocked once, firm, controlled. The door swung open to reveal Clayton Gentry, red-eyed, unshaven, muscles tight beneath a stained work shirt. "What?" he barked. Reed didn't flinch. "We're here about your stepdaughter." Clayton's expression flashed from confusion to pure hostility in a heartbeat. "That little brat ran off again. Should have left her locked up longer." He tried to slam the door, but Reed blocked it with his boot. Rourke stepped beside him, filling the doorway with rough, immovable calm. "We're not here to argue," Rourke said. "We're here to see the girl's mother." Clayton swung a fist, wild, sloppy, fueled by anger and liquor. Reed caught his wrist effortlessly. Rourke pushed the door wider, stepping inside the stale-smelling living room. "Where is she?" Rourke asked. Clayton spit on the floor. "Back bedroom." "Don't you touch her." Reed's voice dipped lower. "You don't get to give orders anymore." Clayton glared at him. "You bikers think you're allowed to break into people's houses?" Rourke smirked slightly. "Break in. Son, you opened the door." He grabbed Clayton's collar and dragged him farther inside. "Let's have a talk." Clayton struggled, but Rourke held him down against the sagging couch like pinning a violent dog. Reed headed down the narrow hall, pushing open the last door gently. The room smelled faintly of lavender and fear. Marcy Gentry sat on the edge of the bed, one cheek purpled from a fresh bruise, hands trembling around a half-folded towel. She startled when Reed stepped in. "Please," she whispered instantly. "If he sees you," Reed knelt slowly, palms up. "Ma'am, Lila is safe. She came to us." Her breath broke. "Safe, oh God." "She was out in that shed all night. Tears spilled over." He said it was discipline. Reed shook his head. "It was abuse." In the living room, Clayton roared as Rourke pinned him harder. Reed stepped back into the hallway. "Rourke, yeah? Cuff him." Rourke's grin was humorless. "Gladly," Clayton thrashed, shouting, "She's my daughter." Reed crouched in front of him, ice cold. "If you believe that, you wouldn't have treated her like something you could lock away." Clayton hissed, "You can't take her." Reed stood tall. "Watch us." Clayton's shouting shook the thin walls as Rourke cuffed him, the metal clicking loud enough for Marcy to flinch from the bedroom. Reed guided her gently into the living room, keeping himself between her and the man who had terrorized them both. Tucker carried Lila inside then, wrapped in his jacket. The moment Lila saw her mother, she ran to her, collapsing into her arms with a sob that punched the whole room silent. Marcy cradled her tightly. "Baby, I'm so sorry," she whispered. Reed gave them a moment, then spoke quietly. "We're getting both of you out of here. Tonight." Clayton snarled from the floor. "You can't just take my family." Rourke pressed a boot to his shoulder. "You lost the right to call them that." Reed scanned the room, broken picture frames, holes in the walls, a half-emptied bottle on the table. The smell of danger clung to everything. "Pack whatever's yours," he told Marcy. "We're not letting him hurt you again." Lila looked up at Reed with wide eyes. "Are we really leaving?" Reed nodded. "For good." Marcy and Lila packed fast trash bags, not suitcases, because nothing in that house had ever been meant to stay nice. Reed kept watch from the doorway while Tucker radioed the clubhouse to prepare safe lodging. "Got the guest room cleared." The voice of Birch, their medic, crackled through. "Extra locks on the door. Bring them straight here." Rourke called Clayton outside to wait for the sheriff. The evening light washed the yard pink, but Lila kept her eyes down, flinching every time the wind rattled the metal gate. Reed crouched in front of her. "You're safe now. Nobody here's gonna raise a hand to you." Lila nodded slowly, clutching her rabbit. Marcy stepped outside next, exhausted but determined. "I should have left sooner," she whispered. Reed shook his head. "You left now. That's what matters." When the sheriff's car finally rolled up the drive, Clayton screamed threats and excuses that nobody listened to. Marcy lifted Lila into the truck, breath trembling. Reed climbed onto his Holly, glancing back once. "Stay close," he told Tucker. "We're getting them home." The ride back to Pine Hollow was slower, measured, Reed leading with a fierce protectiveness that seemed carved into his bones. Tucker drove behind with Marcy and Lila in the cab, the convoy surrounding them like a moving shield. Lila stared out the window, her face illuminated by passing streetlights. "He always said bikers were scary," she murmured. Tucker chuckled softly. "Most of us are just loud." "Loud doesn't mean dangerous." She looked at him, uncertainty loosening slightly. When they pulled into the Angels' lot, Birch was already waiting on the steps, sleeves rolled up. "Room's ready," he said, opening the door. Inside, the usually rowdy clubhouse had transformed. Blankets folded neatly, soft lights, a plate of still warm cornbread someone must have baked fast. Marcy stopped in the entryway, staring at the unexpected kindness. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked Reed. Reed met her gaze with steady conviction. "Because no one deserves to be scared in their own home." Lila slipped her hand into his. "Can we stay?" "Just tonight." Reed nodded. "As long as you need." Birch cleaned the cuts on Lila's feet while she sat on the couch gripping Tucker's hand. Marcy watched from nearby, exhausted but slowly breathing easier as the tension bled from the room. Reed stood by the window, scanning the parking lot like a man who trusted peace only after checking twice. Rourke entered quietly, wiping his hands. "Sheriff took Clayton. He's not getting out anytime soon." Reed nodded once. "Good." Lila looked up. "Mom, what if he comes back?" Marcy brushed her daughter's hair gently. "He won't, not again." Tucker lifted his chin. "And if he tries? He'll find all of us instead." Reed turned from the window. "You're both under our roof now. That means something." Birch finished bandaging. "You'll sleep easier tonight," he said softly. Lila let out a small breath that sounded like the start of trust. In the dim light, surrounded by leather cuts and patched walls, the clubhouse didn't look like danger at all. It looked like safety unexpected. Rough-edged, but real. Later that night, after Lila finally drifted into sleep curled against her mother, Reed, Rourke, Tucker, and Birch gathered around the kitchen table. The single overhead bulb cast a warm circle over their serious faces. Rourke sipped his coffee. Clayton didn't do this alone. Heard him muttering about some brother of his, someone who handles business, might come looking. Reed's jaw tightened. "Then we prepare for visitors?" Tucker folded his arms. "We protecting them just tonight? Or long term?" Reed glanced toward the hallway where Marcy and Lila slept. "As long as they need." No one else stepped in. "We will." Birch nodded. "I'll stay up, keep watch at the front door." Rourke cracked his knuckles. "Back door's mine." Reed stood, grabbing his jacket. "And I'll take the porch." The men moved like pieces locking into place. Outside, Pine Hollow was quiet to quiet. Reed settled into the porch chair, boots planted, listening to the night settle. He wasn't waiting for trouble. He was promising he'd meet it first. Morning light crept through the clubhouse blinds, casting thin gold lines across the living room where Marcy sat awake long before the others stirred. Reed found her at the table, hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking from. "Did you sleep at all?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "Every time I closed my eyes, I kept hearing him." Hearing that door slam on her, Reed sat across from her, calm but firm. "What you did last night getting her out, that took guts." Marky's voice cracked. "I should have done it sooner." "She's 8 years old." Reed, 8. He leaned forward. "Clayton's choices aren't your shame to carry." Before she could answer, Birch hurried in from the side hallway, face tight. "Reed, we've got trouble." Tucker followed behind him, holding a phone. "Sheriff just called. Clayton's brother posted bail an hour ago. He's headed this direction in a silver truck." Reed stood immediately. "How long?" Tucker swallowed. "Sheriff says maybe 15 minutes. The clubhouse suddenly felt smaller. Marky's grip tightened on her mug. "He'll come for her." "He'll come for us." Reed's eyes hardened. "Not while we're standing." Reed issued orders fast. Tucker moved the club's hollies into a protective half-circle across the entrance. Rourke locked down the back door and pulled a chain across the rear alley. Birch guided Marcy and Lila into a safer corner room, away from windows, but within shouting distance. "Stay together," he whispered. "Don't open that door unless it's one of us." Meanwhile, Reed stepped outside, arms crossed over his chest as he stood on the gravel drive, the morning sun glinting off his belt buckle. The air vibrated with approaching engine noise too heavy to be a bike. A moment later, a silver truck rounded the corner fast, dust kicking up behind it. It screeched to a stop 20 feet from the clubhouse. A square-jawed man climbed out, thick forearms, sunburned face, rage simmering. "You Reed Carver," he barked. Reed didn't flinch. "Who's asking?" "Name's Carson." Clayton's brother. You got something that belongs to our family. Reed shook his head slowly. Not anymore. Carson's fists clenched. You don't get to decide that. Reed took one step forward. Watch me. Carson stalked closer, each footstep vibrating with barely controlled fury. You think you can hide her? Think you can keep my brother from his own kid? Reed didn't blink. We're keeping her from getting hurt. Big difference, Carson scoffed. This some biker charity act? That girl don't belong with you people. Tucker came up behind Reed, arms folded. Funny, we seem to be the only ones who acted like family last night. Carson turned, jabbing a finger toward the clubhouse. She's his blood. Reed's voice dropped low. Blood didn't protect her. Carson's jaw flexed. For a moment, Reed thought he might swing, but instead Carson smirked darkly. You boys think you're untouchable. My brother's got friends. Lot more dangerous than you leather-wearing wannabes. Rourke emerged from the side gate. If they're so dangerous, why ain't they here instead of you running your mouth alone? Carson's smirk faded. This isn't over. He backed toward his truck, eyes locked on Reed. You're making enemies you can't outrun. Reed stepped forward, voice steady as a hammer. Then they better keep up. As Carson sped off in a spray of gravel, Reed exhaled slowly, but Tucker shook his head. He wasn't bluffing. That man came to stake territory, not fight. Means backup's coming. Reed rubbed a hand over his beard. We'll brace for it. Birch hurried from the clubhouse. Marcy heard everything. She's panicking. Reed headed inside immediately. Marcy was on the couch, gripping Lila like someone might rip her away. Is he coming? She whispered. Reed knelt beside them. Maybe, but he won't get past us. Lila looked up, voice tiny. What if they take Mommy? Reed shook his head firmly. They won't, not while we breathe. Marcy swallowed hard. Reed, I can't lose her. I can't go back. Please tell me you'll stand with us. Reed didn't hesitate. We stood with you the second you walked into our yard. Outside, the rumble of more bikes approaching filled the air. Other Hell's Angels rolling in, answering Reed's quiet call for support. Rourke glanced out the window. Looks like our family got bigger. The Angels formed a full semicircle around the clubhouse, engines idling low like distant thunder. Reed stepped onto the porch to greet them. Their vice president, a weathered man named Dalton Ridge Sawyer, swung off his bike. Heard you've got a problem brewing, Ridge said, pushing his sunglasses atop his head. Reed nodded. Clayton's brother. Might bring others. Ridge cracked his neck. Well, he won't get far. Tucker approached with a clipboard. We've got members at every entrance. Cameras recording. No blind spots. Reed scanned the formation men he trusted. Men who'd show up again tomorrow if he asked. Thanks for riding in, he said. Ridge smirked. You call, we roll. Inside, Lila peeked from the doorway, seeing the growing wall of bikes and men. They're here for us, she whispered. Marcy squeezed her daughter's shoulders. Yes, sweetheart. They are. The engines eventually cut, leaving a heavy, waiting silence. Reed rested a hand on the railing. Danger was coming. He could feel it tightening in the air. But for the first time, they weren't standing alone. They were fortified. And they were ready. The tension thickened as noon heat settled over the cracked pavement. Reed paced the gravel, listening to every distant engine like it might be the one carrying trouble. The Angels stayed sharp, boots planted, eyes scanning the empty road. Ridge lit a cigarette, exhaling slow. He'll come back, he muttered. Men like that always return to finish the job. Reed nodded grimly. Suddenly Rourke pointed toward the highway. Truck incoming. Silver, same one. Dust trailed behind the pickup as it roared closer, but this time Carson wasn't alone. Another truck followed behind him, its bed full of men, 3, maybe 4, rough-looking, carrying lengths of pipe. Marcy pulled Lila close inside the clubhouse as the engines outside rumbled to life, a defensive growl. Carson skidded to a stop again, climbing out with a smug grin. Told you we'd be back. Ridge stepped forward. You brought a parade. Cute. Carson jabbed a finger at the clubhouse. Hand her over, or things get loud. Reed cracked his knuckles, stepping ahead of his men. Then let the noise begin. Carson's men fanned out, gripping pipes and crowbars, trying to look fearless, but they hesitated when Ridge and Tucker advanced shoulder to shoulder. Reed kept his tone low and cold. "You're not touching that girl." Carson spat on the gravel. "She's family. Family doesn't lock kids in sheds," Tucker snapped. Carson swung a crowbar upward, as if preparing to charge until the low thunder behind the Angels erupted. 20 more Hell's Angels rolled in from the side road, engines snarling like an approaching storm. Their arrival shifted everything. Carson's men froze, fear slicing through their earlier bravado. The newcomers parked in a precise formation, shutting off their engines simultaneously. A tall biker with a scarred cheek stepped forward. "Someone threatening kids around here." Ridge smirked. He was thinking about it. Reed raised a hand, steady but fierce. "Carson, you're surrounded. Leave now." Carson's breath hitched. He scanned the wall of leather and steel and realized he'd miscalculated. Badly. Still, pride kept him from backing down. "You can't keep her forever." Reed's voice cut like steel. "Long enough to save her." Carson snarled and lunged forward, not toward Reed, but toward the clubhouse door behind him. He sprinted with sudden, frantic speed, as if reaching Lila would undo the truth. Reed reacted first, intercepting him halfway across the yard. They collided hard, both hitting the dirt. Carson swung wildly, fists fueled by panic. Reed blocked one blow, took another to the jaw, then slammed his forearm across Carson's chest, pinning him. Tucker and Ridge pulled Carson's men back as they tried to rush in, outnumbered and quickly restrained by the Angels. Ridge cuffed one with zip ties. "Fight's over, boys." Inside the clubhouse, Lila screamed as she heard the scuffle. Marcy held her tight. "He won't get you," she whispered. "Not today. Not ever." Outside, Carson bucked against Reed's weight. "You can't stop me. She's mine." Reed leaned closer, voice low and deadly calm. "You lost that claim the moment you hurt her." Carson went still, breath shaking with something between rage and defeat. Moments later, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, heading straight toward them. Sheriff Dominguez's cruiser was first to arrive, kicking up dust as it slid to a stop. 2 deputies sprang out, taking in the scene. Carson pinned beneath Reed, his men subdued, the Hell's Angels standing solid but calm. Dominguez approached with a hard stare. "Carver, you holding him?" Reed nodded. "He came for the girl. Forced our hand." Dominguez crouched beside Carson. "We had a warrant ready for you this morning, but you saved us the trouble." Carson cursed, thrashing once before the sheriff snapped cuffs around his wrists. "Clayton's already in custody," Dominguez said. "We've got statements from Marcy documenting everything, photos of the shed, the bruises, all of it." Carson's eyes widened. "You can't trust her. She lies. They all lie." Dominguez hauled him upright. "Funny, the truth lines up real well." Deputies loaded Carson and his crew into patrol cars. As the sirens faded, the yard grew quiet again. Marcy and Lila stepped outside, trembling but safe. Lila reached for Reed. "Is he gone?" Reed knelt. "Yeah, kiddo. He won't hurt you again." Her grip around his neck was answer enough. The Angels slowly dispersed into calmer stances, the tension melting into something softer. Marcy stood near the porch, tears sliding silently down her cheeks as relief finally hit her all at once. Reed walked over, removing his gloves and offering her a gentle nod. "You protected her," she whispered. "Both of you saved her life." Reed shook his head. "You saved her when you came to us." Lila slipped her small hand into his. "Do we have to leave now?" Marcy knelt beside her daughter. "We'll find a place. A safe one." Ridge overheard and stepped closer. "You're welcome to stay in Willow Ridge a while. We'll keep watch until you're steady." Marcy covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "Why would you do that?" Reed looked at Lila's tear-streaked face. "Because no child should stand alone against fear. And no mother should fight it without help." As the sun settled behind the hills, the Hells Angels formed a quiet circle around the little family, not threatening, not menacing, but protective. And in that moment, Lila whispered, "I feel safe here." Reed smiled softly. "Good. You're supposed to. If this story moved you, don't write off yet. Hit subscribe, tap like, and ring the bell. More stories of courage, loyalty, and unexpected kinship are waiting down the road.